Imagine discovering your wife's affair, only for her lover's wife to show up at your door, pull down your pants, and blackmail you into a game darker than anything you've ever imagined. This is not a story about betrayal. This is a story about how far a broken man will go to burn the truth to ashes. By the end, you'll question every relationship you've ever had. Don't click away, or you'll never know what happened under the oak tree. Chapter 1. The Crack in the Frame. The first time I noticed something was wrong, Clara was humming. She never hummed. Not in the 12 years we'd been married. It was a jagged little tune, like a broken music box, while she chopped tomatoes for dinner. Her phone buzzed on the counter, screen down. Always screen down now. "Who's texting this late?" I asked, nodding at the device. She didn't look up. Work. Derek's finalizing the merger. Derek. The name slithered into the room. Her new boss, the hedge fund prodigy with a jawline sharper than his portfolio. I'd seen him once at the company gala charcoal suit. A laugh that sounded like a blade unsheathing. "You've been working late a lot," I said, testing the words like thin ice. Her knife paused. "It's a big deal, Ethan. This could change things." "For who?" That night, I lay awake while her breath fogged the dark. The phone glowed under her pillow, a tiny blue heartbeat. When I slid it out, her password door anniversary, 0415, still worked. The guilt pinched, but not as hard as the ferry ticket I found in her email. Catalina Island, 2 passengers. Departure, 7 p.m., name, Martin Riggs. Martin Riggs. A ghost, a lie. "Clara," I whispered, shaking her shoulder. She blinked, drowsy. "Who's Martin Riggs?" A flicker. Then she laughed, soft and sad. "My client, the one I told you about, the divorcee. His wife's taking everything. I booked the trip as a surprise to help him escape." Her hand found mine, cold. "You thought I was cheating?" "No, I lied." But the next morning, I called in sick and followed her. Chapter 2. Whispers in the Dark. The fog clung to San Francisco like a scorned lover, blurring the edges of the financial district's skyscrapers. I parked 2 blocks from Clara's office, collar up, hands jammed in pockets. My phone buzzed a text from Mrs. Peabody, our chain-smoking neighbor who watered our plants and knew everyone's secrets. Saw her last Thursday. Black Audi, man in a suit. License plate started with XJ. The Audi was parked outside the glass tower now, sleek and venomous. Clara stepped out of the lobby at 1:07 p.m., heels clicking like a metronome. She didn't glance around. She never did. I'd always loved that about her, how she moved through the world like it owed her space. The man followed minutes later. Derek. His tie was loosened, sleeves rolled up, as if he'd just finished something intimate. They didn't touch, didn't speak. Just walked toward a cafe with a sign that read "The Bitter Bean." Irony tasted like ash. I slid into the alley beside the cafe, camera trembling in my hands. A relic from my college photography phase, but it still worked. Through the lens, I framed them. Clara laughing, her head thrown back, a strand of hair caught between her lips. Derek leaned in, his finger brushing it away. Click. The camera whirred, then died. "What the hell?" I muttered, smacking it. The screen flickered. Corrupted file. They stood suddenly, chairs screeching. Derek's hand lingered on her lower back, guiding her toward the rear exit. I followed, heart thudding in my throat, until they vanished into a service elevator. The keypad glowed red. Restricted access. Lost? A security guard materialized, thumbs hooked in his belt. His name tag read Hank. Just admiring the architecture. He smirked. "This ain't a museum, pal." Back in my car, I replayed the corrupted photo on my laptop. Static. Then, for half a second, Clara's face flickered into view, her eyes wide, desperate, like she was screaming. But the audio was silence. That night, she came home with takeout. Thai, my favorite. "You're quiet," she said, chopsticks hovering over pad CU. "Long day. Want to talk about it?" "Yes." "Who's Martin Riggs?" "Why did Derek's touch look practiced?" "Why are you lying?" "Just tired." She reached across the table, her wedding band catching the light. "We should get away. Just us, like we used to." "Catalina?" The word slipped out, sharp. Her smile froze. "What?" "Nothing." I stood, plate clattering. "I'll clean up." In the kitchen, her phone buzzed. A notification lit up the screen. Direct. 8 p.m. Usual place. I dropped the plate. Chapter 3. The Stranger at the Door. Rain lashed against the windows that night, a furious rhythm that matched the chaos in my skull. Clara was out. A client emergency, she'd said, her lips brushing my cheek like a ghost. I didn't ask. The lie hung between us thick as the fog outside. I poured a whiskey, neat, and stared at the photo of us on the mantel. Yosemite. 2 years ago. Her smile was real then, or so I'd thought. The doorbell rang. Derek? My throat tightened. But the figure through the peephole was a woman pale, drowned in a trench coat, her hair a dark tangle. She knocked again, harder. Ethan called her. Her voice was frayed wire. I opened the door a crack. Who's asking? Sarah. Sarah Vane. She stressed the last name like a curse. We need to talk. About? Your wife, my husband. The game they're playing. I stepped back instinctively, and she surged inside, rainwater pooling at her boots. Up close, she looked younger than I'd expected, late 20s, maybe, but her eyes were ancient. Hollow. You followed them today, she said, peeling off her gloves. Saw the cafe, the elevator. How do you? Because I've been following you. And them. And the money. She laughed, a sound like shattered glass. You think this is about sex? It's about survival. Their survival. I gripped the whiskey glass tighter. Get to the point. She leaned in, her breath sour with nicotine. Derek's not her lover. He's her partner. They're laundering funds through shell companies, offshore accounts. And when it collapses, they'll vanish, leaving us holding the corpses. Bullshit. Clara's a divorce lawyer, not a criminal. Is that what she told you? Sarah's smile was venomous. Check her office. Second drawer, left side, a burner phone. Passcode 0415 sound familiar? Our anniversary. The room tilted. Why tell me this? Because I want him destroyed. Her voice cracked. And you're the only one desperate enough to help. I set the glass down. Get out. She didn't move. Instead, her hand shot out, fingers digging into my wrist. You don't believe me? Fine, let's give you proof. Before I could react, she yanked my belt loose. What the hell? Her knee jammed into my thigh, pinning me against the wall. Cold air hit my skin as my pants slid down. Her phone flashed, click capturing the humiliation. My boxers, the scar on my hip from our hiking accident. My face twisted in rage. Now you're mine, she hissed, shoving me back. Or this goes viral. Cuckolded husband's midlife meltdown, trending by dawn. I lunged, but she was already at the door. TikTok, Ethan. They're meeting tonight. Dock 17, Fisherman's Wharf. Be there or wear this photo like a scarlet letter. The slam of the door echoed. I stood there, half naked, the whiskey searing my throat. Clara's key turned in the lock an hour later. Ethan? She flicked on the light, heels discarded, hair messy. Why are you sitting in the dark? I didn't look up. Who's Martin Riggs? A beat. Then her laugh, soft as a blade. A client, I told you. And Dock 17? Silence. When I finally met her gaze, her mask had slipped just for a second. Fear. Or fury. Where did you hear that name? Doesn't matter. I stood, pulling my pants up, Sarah's threat burning in my veins. I'm going for a drive. Her hand caught mine. Stay. Please. For a moment, I almost did. Then I remembered the photo, the elevator. The way Derek's fingers had brushed her hair. I need air. The night swallowed me whole. Chapter 4. Unraveling. The garage smelled of motor oil and buried memories. My father's ancient toolbox still sat in the corner, rusted shut, next to the camping gear Clara and I hadn't touched since the miscarriage. I didn't know why I'd come here, maybe because it was the only place she'd never bothered to look. Or maybe because pain clings to old wounds. Sarah's words looped in my head. Second drawer, left side. I'd waited until Clara left for her yoga class, a euphemism that now curdled my stomach before rifling through her desk. The burner phone was there, sleek and black, exactly where Sarah said it'd be. Passcode 0415. Our anniversary. The texts were clinical, coordinates, account numbers, transfer $750K to Cayman B wipe logs, and then, 3 days ago, Martin Riggs' identity confirmed. Proceed. Martin Riggs. The ghost, the lie. I threw the phone against the wall. It bounced, unharmed, a cockroach of technology. That's when I saw the box. Tucked behind old tax files, dust coating its edges, was a cardboard crate labeled Clara College in my own handwriting. I'd packed it after we moved in together, a time capsule of her past. But inside, beneath faded sweaters and dried prom roses, was a film canister. The projector in the garage still worked, its hum a funeral dirge. The film flickered to life. Grainy footage of Clara and Derek in a dim room, their faces lit by a single lamp. The transfers go through Panama, Derek said, tapping a spreadsheet. But if the SEC sniffs around, we pin it on rigs. Clara nodded, her finger tracing a column of numbers. And Sarah? She'll crack eventually. We'll have her committed like the first one. The camera shook, then panned to a shadowed corner. A woman's voice, raspy and raw. You'll burn for this. The film snapped. I rewound it, freezing on the woman's silhouette. Her profile was sharp, familiar the slope of her nose, the defiant tilt of her chin. Clara's, but older, gaunt. My hands shook. The garage door creaked open. Ethan? Clara stood silhouetted in the doorway, yoga mat under her arm, her leggings pristine. What are you doing out here? I blocked the projector. Just reminiscing. She stepped closer, eyes narrowing at the scattered VHS tapes. You're sweating. It's hot. In December? Her laugh was a scalpel. She reached for the film canister. I grabbed her wrist. Who's the woman on the tape? A flicker. Then her free hand slapped me, hard. You snooping on me? After everything I've built? Built? I shoved the burner phone at her. You're laundering money, lying, committing people. She went still. Where did you get that? Sarah Vane. Her breath hitched. That psychotic bitch tried to drown Derek's first wife. You're siding with her? I'm siding with the truth. Truth? She stepped back, voice dropping to a whisper. You want truth? Your father's pension? The mortgage? The life we have? It's all built on Derek's money. My money. So take your moral high ground and choke on it. She stormed out, tires screeching down the driveway. The film canister rolled into a corner, the woman's face frozen in mid-scream. I texted Sarah. I'm in. Her reply was instant. Dock 17. Midnight. Chapter 5. The tape. Dock 17 reeked of rotting fish and diesel. Sarah stood beneath a flickering sodium light, her trench coat flapping like crow's wings. She didn't turn as I approached, her gaze fixed on the black water. You're late. I had to make sure Clara didn't follow. She snorted. She's at the St. Regis, Derek's suite, room 1408. The number punched through me. 1408. Our old anniversary code. Why'd you bring me here? Finally, she faced me. Her pupils were dilated, feverish. Because this is where they dump the bodies. A chill crawled up my spine. Metaphorical or literal? Both. She lit a cigarette, the ember reflecting in her eyes. 3 years ago, Derek's first wife vanished. They found her car here, blood on the steering wheel, but no body. Sound familiar? Clara's not a killer. No? She exhaled smoke. Then why did she visit the psychiatric ward every Thursday for 6 months? Why did she lie about it? The film reel woman's face flashed in my mind-hollow cheeks, Clara's eyes. Who was on the tape? Sarah froze. What tape? The one in my garage. Clara and Derek plotting. And a woman older looks like her. Her cigarette trembled. You have it? Where? Answer me. She stepped closer, voice dropping. Derek's first wife wasn't his first. There was another, a mistress. She had a child, a daughter. The pieces clicked, slow and sickening. Clara. Bingo. She flicked the cigarette into the bay. Derek raised her after her mother disappeared. Taught her how to lie, how to bleed fools like us dry. A foghorn groaned in the distance. I gripped the dock's rusted railing. What's your play in this, Sarah? Revenge? Money? He took my son. Her voice shattered. Custody battle. Said I was unstable. Sound familiar? She yanked a locket from her neck, thrusting it at me. Inside, a toddler's face smiled Derek's eyes, her wild curls. They're doing it again. To you. To anyone who gets close. A crunch of gravel behind us. Sarah spun, pulling a switchblade. Stay back. A figure emerged from the fog-aunt, limping. The woman from the tape? Mom? The word slipped out before I could choke it. Clara's mother stared at me, her lips chapped, hair matted. Ethan. Her voice was a dry leaf. You found the film. Sarah stepped between us. You're supposed to be in Switzerland. He lied. The woman coughed, clutching her ribs. Derek's kept me in a basement cell since Clara turned 18. She visits. Brings me gifts. She rolled up her sleeve-jagged scar spelling liar on her forearm. Why tell me this? I demanded. Because you're next. She grabbed my arm, nails drawing blood. The tracker in your watch, Clara planted it. They're coming, now. Headlights pierced the fog. Tires screeched. Sarah cursed, shoving me toward a fishing boat. Go, they'll kill you. Clara's mother didn't move. Tell her I'm sorry I couldn't love her enough. The first gunshot tore through the night. Chapter 6. The Lie. The gunshot split the air like God's own thunder. Clara's mother crumpled, a dark bloom spreading across her chest. Sarah screamed, shoving me toward the fishing boat. Move, you idiot! Another shot. Wood splintered near my head. I stumbled, knees hitting the dock's edge. Below, the bay turned black, hungry. Jump! Sarah snarled, already halfway over the railing. Cold water punched the breath from my lungs. Salt stung my eyes. Shadows loomed above Derek's men, flashlights slicing the dark. Sarah's hand clamped over my mouth, dragging me under the dock. Breathe through your nose, she hissed. Footsteps pounded overhead. A voice barked. Check the boat! We stayed submerged, sewage and seaweed clinging to our clothes, until the voices faded. Sarah hauled me onto a rotting ladder, her lips blue. They'll track your car, she panted. Mine's 2 blocks north. Keys under the mat. Where are you going? To finish this. She vanished into the fog, a wraith in a trench coat. The car was a dented Prius, reeking of menthols. I drove blind, replaying Clara's mother's last words. Tell her I'm sorry. Home was dark, empty. Clara's suitcase sat in the foyer, packed. Going somewhere? She stepped from the kitchen, a glass of wine in hand. Calm. Always calm. Business trip. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. Miami. I threw the burner phone at her feet. To meet Martin Riggs? A flicker. Then she sipped her wine. You've been busy. Your mother's dead. The glass shattered. What? Derek's men shot her. At the dock. She said to tell you she's sorry. Clara swayed, gripping the counter. You're lying. Am I? I yanked her suitcase open. Dresses. Passports. And my old Rolex, the one I'd lost last month. I pried the back open, a microchip glinted. GPS tracker. I spat. You've been hurting me like cattle. She lunged, nails raking my cheek. You ruined everything. We crashed into the wall, framed photos raining down, our wedding portrait shattered. Why? I pinned her wrists, her breath hot and frantic. Was any of it real? She laughed, wild and broken. The miscarriage was... The words froze me. What? I wasn't ready. Her voice cracked. Derek said he'd fix it. The pills, the doctor, it was just a procedure to him. But you... She sobbed. You looked at me like I'd killed your soul. I recoiled. You chose him, over us. I chose survival. She wrenched free, clutching her suitcase. Stay, or follow. Either way, you lose. The door slammed. Tires screeched. In the silence, I found her note under the Rolex. I tried to love you, but the girl who could is gone. Find the oak tree. Burn it all. The tracker blinked, relentless. Chapter 7. The Offer. Sarah found me at dawn, slumped in the Prius outside a 24-hour diner. I'd been driving in circles, the tracker still pulsing on my wrist like a infected heartbeat. She slid into the passenger seat, reeking of bleach and burnt coffee. You look like hell. You smell like a crime scene. She tossed a manila folder onto the dash. Inside, blueprints of a building I recognized Clara's office. Red circles marked vents, server rooms, a fire exit. We're breaking in, she said, lighting a cigarette. I rolled down the window. To what end? Derek's algorithm. It's how he manipulates trades. Plant a virus in his server, and the whole house of cards collapses. And how do I do that? You're his enemy. He'll never see you coming. I laughed, raw and hollow. He's got men with guns, Sarah, and Clara's scared, she snapped. She left you a clue. The oak tree. Use it. The note crumpled in my pocket. Burn it all. Why should I trust you? She hesitated, then unbuttoned her shirt. What the... Beneath the fabric, her torso was a roadmap of scars, burns, knife marks, a cigarette scar over her heart. Derek did this. When I threatened to expose him, he took my son Ethan. My son, she buttoned up again, hands steady. You think I want money? Power? I want him to hurt, and you're the only one who can make that happen. The tracker buzzed. Clara's car was moving south on Highway 1, toward Big Sur, toward the oak tree from our honeymoon. Fine, I said, but we do it my way. Her smile was a razor. Deal. We parked 3 blocks from Clara's office. The building loomed, a glass coffin. Sarah handed me a USB drive, cold and lethal. Server room, 3rd floor. Insert this. Wait for the prompt, then type Erebus. What's Erebus? The code to unleash hell. The security guard was new, young, bored. I walked in like I owned the place, the tracker hidden under my sleeve. Name? Martin Riggs. He scanned the visitor log. You're not on the list. Call Derek Vane. Tell him I have proof of his offshore accounts. He'll see me. The guard dialed, murmured, nodded. Elevator to the penthouse. Penthouse, not the server room. Derek stood at the window, skyline at his back. He didn't turn. Ethan, I've been expecting you. Where's Clara? Protecting her investment. He gestured to a chair. Sit. Let's discuss your predicament. I'm not here to negotiate. No? He turned, holding a photo of Sarah and me at the dock, her hand on my arm. Blackmail's a ugly look on you, but lucrative. Join us. Clara misses you. Join you? The algorithm's about to make us billions. Be the face of the fund, a happy husband, a redeemed man. His smile was a scalpel. Or end up like Sarah's boy. The air thickened. What did you do to him? The same thing I'll do to you. He pressed a button. The doors hissed open. 2 men dragged in a figures mall, gagged, wide-eyed. Sarah's son. Choose, Derek said. The USB drive burned in my palm. Chapter 8. The Trap. Derek's office was colder than the bay. The boy's muffled whimpers clawed at the air. Sarah's son. Sarah's eyes locked onto mine, pleading. The USB drive felt like a live wire in my fist. Tick-tock, Ethan, Derek said, leaning against his desk. Clara always said you were predictable. Let's prove her wrong. Clara's name cracked something open. I stepped toward the men, hands raised. Let him go. I'll do it. Derek nodded. The gag came off. The boy gasped, Mommy! Before a hand clamped over his mouth again. The server room, Derek said, tossing me a keycard. 3rd floor. Don't make me regret this. The elevator doors closed, sealing me in silence. Erebus. Sarah's voice hissed in my head. The code to unleash hell. But whose hell? The server room hummed, a tomb of blinking lights. I jammed the USB in. The screen flickered. Enter passcode. My fingers hovered. Erebus. The Greek god of darkness, of shadow. Do it. Derek's voice crackled over the intercom. Or the kid learns to fly. I typed it. The screen flashed red. Initiating protocol Erebus. All assets frozen. Alarms blared. Derek's laughter boomed. You think I didn't know? That pathetic virus was mine? A test, and you passed. The doors burst open. Clara stood there, gun in hand. Clara. She fired. The bullet grazed my ear, embedding in the server. Run. What? Run! I bolted past her, the scent of her perfume jasmine and gunpowder filling my lungs. The stairwell echoed with shouts. Below, Sarah's Prius screeched to the curb. Get in! She screamed. Clara's still up there. She's one of them. Sarah stomped the gas. The car lurched forward as gunfire peppered the rear window. You set me up, I snarled. You set yourself up. She tossed me a burner phone. Check the news. The headline blared. Billionaire investor Derek, Vane assassination attempt suspect at large. My face filled the screen. They framed you, Sarah said. Now shut up and listen. She swerved into an alley, killed the lights. The oak tree. That's where she's going. Where they all go. Why? Because that's where Derek buried his first wife. Where he'll bury us. She pressed a knife into my hand. Finish this, or I will. The tracker buzzed. Clara's car was already there. Chapter 9. The Fall. The oak tree stood skeletal against the twilight, its branches clawing at the sky. Clara's car idled nearby, driver's door open, abandoned. The earth beneath the tree was freshly turned, a raw wound in the soil. She's here, Sarah whispered, clutching her switchblade. End this. I stepped forward, the knife cold in my hand. The The wind carried voices Clara's fractured and desperate. Not what we agreed. Derek emerged from the shadows, a shovel slung over his shoulder. Plans change, princess. Your little husband's gone viral. Time to tie loose ends. Clara backed toward the tree, a pistol trembling in her grip. You promised you'd spare him, and you promised not to fuck this up. He lunged, grabbing her wrist. The gun fired wild, birds scattering. I ran. Sarah's scream chased me. Don't. Clara saw me first. Her eyes widened fear, relief, fury. Ethan, run. Derek swung the shovel. It cracked against her temple. She dropped, blood threading through her hair. Finally, Derek spat. Family reunion. The knife felt foreign, a toothpick against his rage. He swung again. I ducked, slashing at his thigh. He roared, stumbling into the grave. Look at you, he laughed, blood seeping through his slacks. The cuckold with a knife. Clara's knight. Clara stirred, crawling toward the tree's roots. Her fingers dug into the dirt, unearthing a rusted metal box. Don't, she choked. Derek lunged for her. I tackled him, the knife plunging into his shoulder. He howled, flipping us. His hands closed around my throat. You lose, he hissed. A gunshot. Derek froze. A red flower bloomed on his chest. Behind him, Clara stood, the pistol smoking. No, she whispered. We do. Derek collapsed. Sarah emerged from the tree line, her son clutched to her chest. Mommy, the boy cried. Clara leveled the gun at Sarah. You shouldn't have come. Neither should you. Sarah nodded at the box. Open it. Inside, a child's drawings. Stick figures with Clara's wild curls. A house on fire. A man with Derek's jawline hanging from a tree. At the bottom, scrawled in crayon. Daddy hurts us. Make him stop. Clara sank to her knees. You knew. I lived it, Sarah said. Just like you. The pistol clattered to the ground. Clara reached for me, her hand bloody. I tried to be better. I stepped back. Did you? Police sirens wailed in the distance. Sarah vanished into the woods, her son's hand in hers. Clara stared at the grave, then at Derek's body. He was right about one thing, she said. We're survivors. She picked up the shovel. Chapter 10. The oak. Clara's shovel bit into the earth, each thrust violent, methodical. Dirt rained over Derek's body, filling his open mouth, his dead eyes. I stood paralyzed, the boy's drawings fluttering in my hands. You knew, I said, all this time what he did to you, to your mother. She didn't stop digging. And what would you have done? Called the cops? Held me while I cried? I would have helped. Help? She laughed, raw and broken. You couldn't even help yourself. The sirens grew louder. Red and blue lights pulsed through the trees. Clara froze, shovel midair. They'll arrest you, I said. They'll arrest you. She tossed the shovel at my feet. Your prints are on the knife, the gun, the algorithm. Who do you think they'll believe? A Wall Street prince or the jealous husband? The box of drawings trembled in my hands. One sketch slipped free, a girl hiding under a bed, a man's shoes outside the door. Was this you? She hesitated. Every night. The sirens were blocks away. Branches snapped behind us. Sarah emerged, her son asleep in her arms. There's another grave, she said. Deeper. Clara stiffened. Don't. But Sarah was already digging, her hands bloody. The shovel struck wood. A tiny coffin, rotted, its hinges rusted shut. Open it, Sarah demanded. No. Clara lunged, but I caught her. Inside, a doll, a tattered dress, and a birth certificate. Clara Marie Vane. Father, Derek Robert Vane. He was your father? I choked. After he killed my mother, Clara whispered. He made me his daughter, his project. Sarah pulled a faded photo from the coffin. Derek, younger, holding a baby. Clara, he took you, raised you, turned you into this. Clara snatched the photo, tearing it. You think I had a choice? He would have buried me here with her. The sirens stopped. Car doors slammed. Shouts erupted. Last chance, Sarah said, thrusting her son into my arms. Run or rot with them. Clara grabbed my wrist, her touch feverish. Stay. We'll tell them it was self-defense. I pulled free. We're done lying. She flinched, then smiled, bitter and final. You always were a terrible husband. Flashlights cut through the trees. Freeze! Hands up! Clara raised the shovel. Sarah bolted. The boy stirred, whimpering. "Don't!" I yelled. But Clara swung not at the cops, but at the oak tree. The blade split the trunk, revealing a hollow. Inside, stacks of cash, passports, a syringe. "For the weak," she said, plunging the needle into her arm. The gunfire was deafening. Chapter 11. Reckoning. They cuffed me in the dirt, knees grinding into the soil where Derek's blood pooled black. Clara lay nearby, eyes open, the syringe still jutting from her vein. The cops barked questions, but all I heard was the boy's heartbeat against my chest. Sarah's son, still asleep, still alive. "Hand him over," an officer ordered, prying him from my arms. The child woke, screaming, "Mommy! Where's Mommy?" Sarah was gone. So was the cash. So was the truth. They charged me with everything: fraud, conspiracy, Derek's murder. The trial lasted 3 days. Clara's journals sealed my fate. Pages of forged love letters, fake texts, a confession written in her elegant script. Ethan made me do it. I got 25 years. The oak tree burned the night I was sentenced. Arson, they said. But I knew Sarah, knew the smell of her vengeance. 5 years in, a guard tossed me a letter. No return address. Inside, a child's drawing. Stick figures holding hands under a tree. On the back, a single word. Sorry. I served 7 years before the appeals. New evidence, a security tape from Derek's office leaked anonymously. Clara slipping the syringe into her sleeve. Derek, alive until her bullet. The judge called it inconclusive. They let me out on parole. The oak tree was a charred stump now. I dug where the roots once sprawled, my hands raw, until the metal box emerged, rusted, locked. Inside, beneath ash and time, was another film canister. The projector hummed in my motel room. Grainy footage flickered. Clara at 16, bruised, filming herself in a bathroom mirror. "If you're watching this, I'm dead. Derek's dead. And you're free." Her voice wavered. The algorithm wasn't his. It was mine. A fail-safe, transferring every penny he stole to offshore accounts. Passcodes hidden in our wedding vows. Find them. Take it all. The film cut to Derek, drunken, slurring. "You're just like your mother. Weak." Clara's face filled the frame, venomous. "Rotten hell, Dad." Static. Then coordinates. Numbers. A bank in Zurich. I boarded a ferry to Catalina, the same one from her lie. The sea churned, salt stinging my lips. In my pocket, the drawing from Sarah's son. Sorry. At the bow, a woman stood, dark hair, trench coat. Sarah, she didn't turn. "You knew," I said. "I knew she loved you," she replied. "In her way. Why come back?" She handed me an envelope. Inside, a photo of her son, grinning, a man's hand on his shoulder, mine, from the trial. "He remembers you," she said. "The man who carried him." The ferry docked. She vanished into the crowd. In Zurich, the vault held $287 million. And one more film reel. I haven't watched it yet. Was Clara a victim, a monster, or something in between? The truth is ash now. But the fire never dies. If you made it this far, you're part of this. Comment what you think was on that final tape. And subscribe, because some secrets can't stay buried forever.